Oh, Pokemon Crystal, you're such a classic, yet you've only sold 6.39 million copies, the lowest amount out of all the main series titles. Okay, quick side note, 6 million sales is still pretty good, I think, but why is Crystal the least popular game? Does it have to do with when it was released, the content inside the game? Well, those types of questions are exactly what I'll be answering in this video. Just like the last one, this could probably be a YouTube short, but I like to unnecessarily and overly analyze things. Similarly to how I do when it comes to rating my chat's food during live streams. Now here's what I can see what you try to do with the pancakes.
You try to get some syrup on the pancakes, which is a good idea at first, but I can already tell the syrup's starting to dry up. You know, it's like, what was even the point of putting the syrup on in the first place? But then, you know, if you really diagnose this deeper, you realize that the syrup, because it dripped off of the pancakes, it's now kind of getting in with the sausage. It is acting as a pool for the sausage links.
Follow the Twitch, by the way. Anyways, hit that sub button if you want, and without further ado, let's dive straight into it. So, Gold and Silver totaled over 23.5 million sales, which is the fourth most out of every mainline title. And obviously, Pokemon Crystal didn't even come close to touching that number, begging the question, was there enough new content introduced in Crystal to truly separate it from Gold and Silver and warrant a purchase? Well, there kinda is. Plenty of features that debuted in Crystal are still prevalent in newer generations, including being able to choose a female protagonist, displaying a location's name upon entering a new area, and taking on the battle tower. However, those are mainly just quality of life improvements, so were there any major elements that really affected people's gameplay? Sure, the whole Usean Suicune thing is okay. There's that new side quest in the Ruins of Alph that I didn't even know about until now. That probably doesn't help Crystal's case. And oh, let's not forget about the new grass west of Violet City. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. The rival doesn't change, the gym leaders in Elite Four don't change, and the main plot with Team Rocket is identical to Gold and Silver. Now, a lot of people appreciated the new animated sprites and updated graphics, but again, that's just not enough to make Pokemon Crystal feel like a brand new journey. Therefore, why would players drop another 40 to 50 bucks 1 year after Gold and Silver? Speaking of the OG Gen 2 games, let's be honest, they have a fair share of problems. The one I hear about the most is the level curve. Personally, I don't mind the open world opportunity you get after defeating Morty, but when it comes to fighting Chuck, Jasmine, and Price, a lot of people dislike the fact that no matter if you take the Olivine route or Mahogany route, that third gym leader is always a cakewalk, especially considering how Price uses ice types, which have like 80 weaknesses, and Jasmine's ace can be obliterated by 2 of the 3 starters. The same is true for the surrounding areas too. I mean, the Rocket hideout under the convenience store is absolutely littered with Pokemon that are a lower level than the third gym leader. And don't even get me started on how most of Kanto's gym leaders share levels with the Johto Elite Four. I'll admit that part's pretty bad. So, what did Pokemon Crystal do to fix this issue? Nothing. They didn't do anything. It's all the same. Another big complaint about Gold and Silver is how a bunch of cool Johto mons can only be found in Kanto. Murkrow, Misdreavus, Houndour, Slugma, all of them are exclusive to the postgame, and nobody's trying to train up those low-leveled mons at that point. Yet again, did Pokemon Crystal save the day? Not really. The 4 Pokemon I mentioned are still locked behind becoming the champion, but there is a wider variety of encounters toward the beginning of the game. One problem though, they're incredibly annoying to find. Phanpy's a 5% encounter in the morning on that southern section in Route 46, and Teddiursa has the same odds in the Dark Cave. Why? Why did y'all have to make them so rare? So yeah, Pokemon Crystal didn't solve some of the biggest issues from its predecessors, resulting in a weaker incentive to buy it. I'd say it's time to talk about the timing of Crystal's release though. See what I did there? First off, if you didn't know, Gold and Silver were initially planned to be the last Pokemon games ever produced. This could have possibly caused fans to be confused when Crystal dropped not too long after, subsequently continuing the franchise. Nonetheless, Crystal came out on the Game Boy Color, which was nearing the end of its life cycle at that time, thanks to the Game Boy Advance hitting the market a year later. It's like if Nintendo dropped a big Mario game on the Switch 1 just before releasing the Switch 2. It doesn't make much sense. Consequently, if you didn't own a Game Boy Color and maybe you already played Gold or Silver on the original Game Boy as well, then there wasn't much of a reason to buy a GBC just for Pokemon Crystal while knowing that the GBA is on its way. As I just mentioned, Gold and Silver could be played on a variety of those early Game Boys, including the Game Boy Pocket. Conversely, Crystal was exclusive to the Game Boy Color, meaning you had to buy a whole separate console just to get access to the game. In total, this ran you upwards of $150 at the time, which is just a lot all to play Pokemon Crystal. And this leads into the next issue. It's already difficult to access the Johto games nowadays, and Crystal is no exception. The Gen 2 games were available on the Nintendo Virtual Console, but that thing got banished to the Shadow Realm in March of 2023. Right now, a Game Boy Color can go for right under or over $100, but Pokemon Crystal...
Hey, yo! Tell them to bring me my money.
Yeah! Oof, yeah, that'll make your wallet get to work. I was able to find plenty of Nintendo DS consoles and copies of Pokemon Heart Gold for somewhat friendlier prices. So what does this all mean? Well, it seems that if a new player wants to go back and experience the Johto region for the first time, their best bet is to purchase a DS and a copy of the Gen 2 remakes. As a result, there's less traffic and sales when it comes to Crystal. When discussing the content in Crystal, I touched on how it introduced some solid quality of life improvements, but how does it stack up with the other quote-unquote trio games? You know, Yellow, Emerald, and Platinum. To put it simply, it might be the worst, and it pains me to say that. Look, Emerald brought along the Battle Frontier, which is a massive step up from the Battle Tower. The game also upgraded gym leaders by giving them more challenging teams, and the main plot is different from Ruby and Sapphire as you deal with both Team Magma and Aqua, and Rayquaza plays a much larger role. Similarly, Platinum fixed a lot of things that players groaned about in Diamond and Pearl. Most notably, it runs a bit quicker, there are 59 more obtainable mons, and the Distortion World makes its debut, which greatly alters the main story. I mean, if you compare how well Crystal fixed and updated its journey from Gold and Silver, to how well Emerald and Platinum did with their respective games, I think the latter two did a lot more, resulting in Crystal kind of being kicked to the side. Now, I did throw Pokemon Yellow in there as well, and this one could be debated. Obviously, there were plenty of limitations for Yellow, considering how Pokemon was still in its early days. However, you received a different starter, some of the gym leaders' teams changed from Red and Blue, and there were even new characters with the whole Jesse and James stuff. Out of these 4 games I've talked about, there's a real argument for Crystal to be at the bottom, which diminishes its popularity. Okay, this one might not have as much of an impact, but if there's one thing about Pokemon fans, it's that they take things seriously. Sometimes too seriously. Anyways, there were a few mons present in Gold and Silver, but then for whatever reason were excluded in Crystal. This includes the Vulpix line, Mankey line, Remoraid line, Girafarig, and hold up! You can't get Mareep either? What are we doing? I feel like the Mareep line is one of the staples for Johto. I'd put money on the fact that many people adore these mons and refuse to play Crystal since they're unable to catch and use one of their favorites. Before you go spend your hard-earned money on a brand spanking new video game, you'll typically check out what other people are thinking about it first. And when it comes to Pokemon Crystal, the reviews are actually pretty good. On GameFAQs, there's plenty of 8s, 9s, and 10s. But even in those reviews, one aspect constantly gets brought up. Yep, it's exactly what I've been saying. The game isn't different enough from Gold and Silver. If someone who already owns one of those 2 titles comes across these types of reviews, it's likely that they'll pass on Crystal and await the next drop instead. And with that, I think we've solved the mystery behind Pokemon Crystal being the least popular installment. Personally, I love the Johto games, and yes, that includes Crystal, so it does stink to see it perform the worst, but that's just the way it is, man. Okay, I hope y'all enjoyed this one. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, deuces.